in the banks. Gonna see if we can pull a fish out the clay. There's
Wow.
Here, ain't they?
Wow.
She built an empire out of mud, rivers, and barehanded catfish wrestling. Now, at 30 years old, the woman the internet calls the Catfish Girl just did something that split her own fan base down the middle. And this time it has nothing to do with hunting. Stick around, because by the end of this video you will understand exactly why millions of people cannot stop talking about Hannah Barron right now. Most people who know the name Hannah Barron picture the same thing. A small-town Alabama girl standing waist-deep in muddy water, arm buried inside a submerged log, wrestling a fish twice the size of her torso to the surface with nothing but grit and bare hands. That image made her famous. It is not, however, the whole story, and it never really was. Hannah Barron was born on July 3, 1996, in Crenshaw County, Alabama, a rural stretch of the state where farmland outnumbers stoplights. It is the kind of place where a kid either grows up glued to a screen or grows up outside. And for Hannah, there was never really a choice to make. Her father, Jeff Barron, was the kind of hunter who planned his entire calendar year around deer season, turkey season, and hog season. And he brought his daughter along for almost every trip. By the time most kids are learning to ride a bike without training wheels, Hannah was already learning to read tracks, judge wind direction, and sit still in a deer stand for hours without complaint. That patience got tested early. At age 8, Hannah took her first deer, a 7-point buck, but only after her father made her pass on a string of smaller bucks first. It was not about the trophy. It was a lesson about restraint, about waiting for the right moment instead of settling for the easy one. And it is a lesson she has talked about publicly as one of the things that shaped how she approaches everything else in life, from hunting to business. While her classmates were chasing whatever trend was popular that year, Hannah was spending her afternoons along creek beds and tree lines, learning to identify local snakes before she had even started elementary school. None of this looked like the beginning of an internet career. It looked like an ordinary rural Alabama childhood. And for years that is exactly what it was. The shift happened almost by accident. Somewhere around 2016, a neighbor named Brad Gavin, who worked as a game warden, taught Hannah and her father a hands-on style of catfishing known as noodling. If you have never heard of it, the concept is simple to explain and much harder to actually do. A noodler wades into the water, finds a submerged hole where a catfish is likely hiding, and reaches straight in with their bare hand, letting the fish clamp down so it can be dragged up to the surface. It is dangerous, it is unpredictable, and it looks absolutely insane on camera. One afternoon, a cousin happened to be filming when Hannah pulled a 30-pound flathead catfish out of the water using nothing but her hands. That single clip did something almost nobody expected. It did not just circulate among hunting and fishing communities. It broke completely out of that bubble. People who had zero interest in fishing were sharing it, commenting on it, tagging their friends in it. The video eventually raced past 15 million views, and somewhere in the flood of comments, a nickname was born that has followed her ever since: the Catfish Girl. What made that early footage land so hard was not shock value alone. It was the complete absence of performance. Hannah was not acting scared. She was not acting tough for the camera. She was just doing what she had grown up doing. And the calm, almost casual confidence on her face felt genuine in a way that stood out against a social media landscape that already felt overly polished. At a time when so much online content felt staged, a 5-foot-tall girl from rural Alabama pulling a giant catfish out of the mud with her bare hands felt like the opposite of fake, and audiences responded to that. By 2018, while her online following kept climbing, Hannah graduated from Troy University with a Bachelor of Science degree, proving that the girl behind the viral clips was juggling a full academic life alongside the growing attention. Her small frame, standing at roughly 5 feet tall, became part of the appeal too. The contrast between someone that size hauling in fish that occasionally weighed nearly half as much as she did was simply not something people had seen before, and it pulled in an audience far outside the traditional hunting and fishing crowd. That crossover appeal reportedly caught attention in some unexpected places. Longtime followers of her career have pointed to a moment where a well-known college football coach took notice of her rising profile for reasons that had nothing to do with fishing at all. A strange but telling sign of just how far her reach had traveled beyond the outdoor community. Not everyone welcomed her with open arms, though. Inside more traditional corners of the hunting world, a young woman openly wrestling catfish barehanded on camera challenged old assumptions about who those sports were supposed to belong to. Some dismissed it early on as a gimmick that would fade within a season. Instead, the opposite happened. Every new video brought a bigger audience than the last. As her platform grew, so did the business built around it. Her father, Jeff, had always appeared in her videos, but their partnership eventually deepened into something closer to a full family operation, with Hannah taking on editing duties for his channel, as well as running her own. In September 2023, Jeff and Hannah co-founded a CBD company aimed specifically at outdoorsmen, hunters, and travelers, built around the audience they had already spent nearly a decade cultivating rather than chasing a passing trend. The numbers behind the brand grew into something genuinely enormous. She built a following that today sits close to 2 million on Instagram, with millions more spread across YouTube and TikTok. Brand partnerships expanded well beyond hunting gear, eventually including sports nutrition companies and her own merchandise line. Industry researchers have even pointed to creators like her when explaining a documented rise in female hunters over the past decade, crediting visible, authentic role models on social media rather than staged marketing campaigns for helping shift who get seen as belonging in the outdoors. Then came a moment that could have knocked the entire brand off course. In early 2024, a video clip of Hannah speaking with her natural southern accent while helping build a family home started circulating after a commentator mocked the way she talked and suggested her love of hunting made her somehow less feminine. The clip exploded, racking up tens of millions of views within days. Most people facing that kind of pile-on take time to craft a careful response, or bring in a publicist, or simply go quiet for a while. Hannah did neither. Her response came fast, and instead of getting defensive, she leaned straight into the exact things being mocked, turning an attempted insult into a reminder of exactly who she had always been. The moment did not just fail to hurt her, it turned into one of the more talked-about examples of an online pile-on completely backfiring, pulling in new followers who had never heard of her before the controversy started. That was not the last time critics tried to define her from the outside. A separate backlash followed a hunting post the next year, with critics upset about the hunt itself rather than her image this time. The pattern looked familiar. Outrage spread fast, support arrived even faster, and her following kept climbing regardless. Which brings us to now, the part of the story that has actually pulled in the most attention in recent months, and the reason so many people are typing her name into search bars wondering what is really going on. In the middle of 2026, Hannah's merchandise brand did something almost nobody following her hunting content saw coming. Alongside camouflage jackets, hunting gear, and outdoor apparel, she launched a swimwear line. For a brand built entirely around mud, rivers, and barehanded catfish wrestling, putting out a bikini collection looked, on paper, like a complete contradiction. And that contradiction is exactly what set off the reaction that has people calling this the rumor finally being confirmed. Here is the thing worth understanding, though, because the framing matters. There was never some hidden scandal being covered up. What actually happened is far less dramatic and far more interesting once you look at it honestly. For years, a certain type of critic online had spent time mocking Hannah for not fitting a conventional idea of femininity, for being too rugged, too outdoorsy, too comfortable getting muddy and bloody on camera. When the swimwear line launched and reportedly started selling out in some sizes almost immediately, with fans posting their own photos wearing it, that old criticism suddenly had nowhere left to go. The same voices who once claimed hunting made her unfeminine were now watching that exact same person succeed in a completely different lane, one built around fashion and lifestyle rather than fishing and firearms. Comment sections split almost instantly. Some longtime fans cheered the move as a natural next step for a growing business, proof that a brand built on authenticity does not have to stay boxed into one category forever. others pushed back, worried that stepping into swimwear risked diluting the rugged outdoor identity that had built the entire following in the first place. Both sides kept watching closely either way, which, if you think about it, is exactly the kind of engagement any growing brand wants. What actually connects this moment to everything that came before it is not scandal, it is pattern. Every single time critics have tried to put Hannah Barron into a box, whether it was mocking her accent, questioning her femininity, or criticizing her hunting choices, the response has ended up rewriting the narrative from the inside rather than confirming whatever the critics expected to find. The swimwear launch fits that same pattern perfectly. It is not a secret being revealed. It is simply someone continuing to build a life and a business on her own terms, in public, the same way she has done since that first viral noodling clip 15 years ago. So if you came into this video expecting some dark secret or scandalous confession, here is the honest answer. There isn't one. What there is instead is a genuinely compelling story about a rural Alabama kid who turned patience learned in a deer stand, a bare-handed catfishing technique taught by a neighbor, and an authenticity that never wavered under pressure into a business now estimated in the millions of dollars. The rumor that keeps circulating, that there is some hidden bombshell waiting to be uncovered, keeps turning into the same thing every single time someone digs into it. A woman who refused to shrink herself